Do you want to know which running backs should be in or out of your lineup for Week 14? We're about to tell you. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre. He's Chris. We're here to break down all the matchups for fantasy football Week 14 as we do. And this time we're going to talk just running back. It's the final week for buys. The Packers, the Bears, Saints, Colts, Falcons, and Commanders are all out of action this week. Now, before we go to the actual matchups, let's talk about those running backs that are still must start no matter what. Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, CMC, aka Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Dalvin Cook, and if Kenneth Walker plays, he's still a must start. All right, Thursday night kicks off action for a game that looked so much better on paper before the season actually started. It's the Raiders at the Rams. I mean, you're going to have one stud running back in Jacobs, that's for sure. Now, on the Rams side, well, we do still have to talk about Cam Akers. Look, he put up some fancy points in Week 13. He scored twice, 60 yards. And he seems to have a really firm hold of the backfield now these days. Is that enough to interest you in Akers for fantasy?
Not really. It was Seattle. I mean, I know it's the Raiders, so it's not a terrible matchup, but man, still not giving you much outside of touchdowns. Are we really going to bank on him scoring 2 touchdowns again? I'm not going to say outright sit Cam Akers this week, but I'll say, only start him if you need him.
Yeah, I mean, typically chasing touchdowns from the week before is a bad strategy, but I will say at least he is startable. He could be considered the RB3 range. The fact is he is the guy getting pretty much all the touches. Kyren Williams, not a factor anymore, and it's a great matchup. So, no, you can't say you have to start Akers, but I won't say you have to sit him. With all these teams on bye, I think he is usable. And then I guess we'll mention Kyren Williams. Got a lot of questions about Kyren Williams last week, and it was an easy no every time. I think it's probably a very easier no this week as well.
Yeah, hard pass on Kyren Williams.
Jets will take on the Bills, and let's talk Zonovan Knight. It looks like he's the guy now. Rumors about a committee and 3 guys are going to get used. It was pretty much Knight. I mean, he had the vast majority of the carries, and he was good with them. I mean, this isn't probably going to be the best game script for him, but do you think Knight now also enters this startable range?
Startable is the right word. I mean, it's the Bills. I know they're not, as fearsome as a defense as they were early in the season because they have a lot of injuries, but still, it's the Bills. But look, he's getting the work. He looks pretty good. Again, if you need him, you can start him.
Yeah, again, he might be a decent bye-week fill-in. But let's not go crazy. Just because he's in New York, he's probably getting a little more attention than some other running backs with similar production would. So RB3 if you need. And then in Buffalo, interesting development. Kind of out of nowhere, we see James Cook getting more touches than Devin Singletary. Do you think this means something that maybe he's going to be, I probably won't be 1A, 1B, kind of a timeshare maybe. But do you think Cook has similar value to Singletary, and is he startable?
I don't know if I'd say more value. I would just kind of say different value, right? We know James Cook, more of a pass catcher, not a big guy, not going to get a lot of the goal line work. That's still probably going to be mostly Singletary. But I'm going to say because of the usage and especially because of the pass catching, again, another guy like a solid flex option this week if you need him.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty solid option. The thing is, the Jets really good at locking down wide receivers. I'm not saying they're going to shut down Stephon Diggs, but good pass defense. I think we're going to see a lot of passes to the running back. Again, this seems to be a staple of the Buffalo offense this year. So I think Cook is a flex option this week. And then what about Singletary? Do you put him at the same or a little bit below Cook then?
Maybe slightly below, but it's still not much at all. Because again, we know he has a touchdown upside at least, and he will catch some passes as well. So again, like a solid, if not exciting, flex option.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be pretty much 50-50 right now. Cook probably has the higher floor. Singletary might have the higher ceiling, like you said. He's been scoring touchdowns. But, yeah, RB3. Okay, Brown's going to face the Bengals. Well, Kareem Hunt actually got a little bit more action. Not enough to make you excited, but still, at least he was kind of involved. I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that Njoku was missing or Deshaun Watson is there. Who knows? But anyways, do you think Kareem Hunt now has more value with a different quarterback?
Not really, and this is a tough matchup against Cincinnati. I'm slightly encouraged, but only slightly. Not enough to put him in my lineups yet. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, agree. I'm still going to say just sit him. You can stash him, hold him on your bench as a handcuff if you have Chubb, but that's it. I'm not playing Kareem Hunt. And then we do have to talk about Joe Mixon. Hasn't played now 2 weeks in a row. I mean, Samaje Perine kind of has looked better in his place, but still. If Joe Mixon comes back, I wonder, is he a no doubt must start, or do you kind of have to pause and think about it?
No, he's in my lineup, especially against Cleveland. I mean, yeah, if Joe Mixon is back, he's in my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be the lead guy. I do think Perine might see a little bit more action, but the matchup, right? It's the Browns, this run defense. They made Dameon Pierce actually look decent again this last week. They've gotten torn up a lot. Yeah, you have to start Mixon if he's active, which you think he should be. He was really close to playing this week. It was a game-time decision. Now, what do you do with Perine? Do you think he still gets involvement? Went over 100 yards on the ground himself. Do you think he kind of eats into a little bit of Mixon's value? Do you think he has any standalone value?
Not if Mixon plays. If Mixon is out again, you have to start Perine. He's a must start. But if Mixon plays, I'm benching Perine.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be enough to be startable. Again, the matchup makes you think twice, but yeah, Perine might get 6-7 carries, might get a couple of receptions. That's not enough. You need more. So I'd say keep Perine even if Mixon plays, because now he's proven he is a high-end handcuff, but don't start him. Texans taking on the Cowboys in the battle for Texas. So Dameon Pierce, just mentioned him. Kind of revival. I mean, 70-something yards, nothing outstanding. Still not finding the end zone. But at least he gave you something. Do you think he can do anything, though, against Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, look, he didn't completely bust against Cleveland. That was the good thing here. But he certainly didn't look outstanding against a bad run defense. And now he gets a much better run defense to face. Not catching enough passes, not really getting touchdown opportunities. I'm sitting Pierce again this week.
I would definitely be worried about Pierce. Again, not as much usage as early in the season, but also this was a great spot for him, and this is not going to be a great spot. And this Houston offense somehow has gotten worse with Kyle Allen, so I'll still keep him kind of in the RB3 range. Like, I'd rather start Dameon Pierce probably than Devin Singletary, but yeah, RB3 range as well. And then on the other side, you got that kind of annoying but effective timeshare. Let's start with Tony Pollard. How does he do against Houston?
I mean, you got to feel good about him. He looks great, looks explosive. Yeah, you have to start Tony Pollard this week.
I mean, you couldn't ask for a better spot, right? Houston run defense, which has been a little less worse lately, but still. Tony Pollard, I think, a really strong start this week. Is Zeke also a strong start?
I think so, because we know he's going to get enough volume, and he always has touchdown upside in this offense. So with this matchup against Houston, I think Zeke is also a good start.
Yeah, and again, as annoying as it may be, kind of running even with Pollard as far as usage the last couple of weeks, he's been about as effective as well. Always has touchdown upside. This Dallas offense is just, red hot lately. So, yeah, I think Zeke is pretty strong RB2 this week. Vikings at the Lions. Let's go ahead and take a bow. DeAndre Swift, you called him a boom. He had his best game in a long time. Do you think that carries forward? Do you think he gets maybe even more involved this week against the Vikings?
I do. Swift is back, baby. He led the team in all running backs in snaps, carries, receptions, targets, yards, got goal line work, got work inside the 10, everything you wanted to see, and you got to think it's only going to increase because it's been increasing. So Swift is back. I think next week when we do these videos, he's going to be in the no doubt must start. But for this week, you starting DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, no, obviously the matchup on paper isn't quite as good. Jacksonville just laid down this last week. But anyways, that's the thing. He never really gets scripted out because he's such an efficient pass catcher. So much upside. You have to start DeAndre Swift. And then Jamal Williams, I mean, another touchdown, but I think you're a little disappointed with what he's giving you otherwise.
Yeah, people keep commenting like, oh, Chris, you don't have Jamal Williams as a no doubt, as a must start. He leads the league in touchdowns. Well, great. He's scored the last 2 weeks and you've gotten 10 points and 9 points. What are you going to get when he doesn't score? Jamal Williams isn't a guy who's touchdown dependent. Jamal Williams is double touchdown dependent. Like, he needs 2 touchdowns to give you anything. I'm done. I am not starting Jamal Williams anymore. You want to do it, go for it, but I'm done. I'm sitting him.
All right. Well, I mean, it stands to reason if Swift is rising, Williams is falling, and he is in terms of yardage and touches. Look, if you're in a non-PPR league, yes, Jamal Williams is a must-start. If you're in a full PPR league, obviously he's startable because he can definitely get you some points. I'd much rather have Swift. So, I kind of put Jamal Williams more as a high-end RB3. I think he's obviously startable, and you might need him this week, but you can't say you have to start him. Eagles at the Giants. Got Saquon Barkley on one side, and then you got Miles Sanders. I mean, he did find the end zone, but otherwise a letdown against, well, I guess not a letdown. It was against the top run defense in the league, so not surprising he got pretty much shut down. Does he bounce back this week?
I think so. I mean, I think you and I both talked about it a lot in our start-sit shows and on the videos. We did not like Miles Sanders in Week 13 against the Titans, but you got to like him in Week 14 against the Giants. Not a good run defense. Start Miles Sanders.
I like Miles Sanders a lot this week. You never really know what he's going to give you, but man, he's been looking so good this year, and this is definitely going to be a smash spot. So I'm going to go ahead and say you have to start Miles Sanders this week. Ravens at the Steelers. Well, some question in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, their leading rusher, may not play. How does that affect the whole offense on the road against Pittsburgh? Well, we may see. But let's start with Gus Edwards, who, well, didn't do a whole lot against Denver. Does he do anything in this matchup?
Probably not. Steelers' run defense has been a lot better with TJ Watt. Gus Edwards, another guy like Jamal who has to score to give you really anything. I'm not starting Gus Edwards this week.
I'm really worried. Look, I think record versus reality, how they play. I think Baltimore is honestly one of the weakest playoff teams. If you look at, teams that might make the playoffs if they ended now. This offense already had issues. Without Lamar, no, I'm staying away. I'll say no to Gus Edwards. And then on the other hand, you had Najee, who, not amazing, but another strong performance from him. It looks like he's good. Going against the Ravens, though, that run defense has been pretty stout. What do you think Najee does?
Yeah, can't be as excited about Najee this week. Much tougher matchup against the Ravens, but he's getting the volume. He's catching passes. He has chances to score. So I'll say Najee is in the, kind of flex if you need him category.
I'll go a little higher. I'll say he's kind of a solid low-end RB2. I feel good about the usage. That's the thing. I feel good. He's got some upside. Didn't score last week, but he's always got some potential for that. So I like Najee enough to say he's a decent start. Jags going to take on the Titans. What do we make of Travis Etienne? He did play. He didn't go off, but I think a lot of that had to do with game script because, man, the Jags just got rolled over by the Lions. Does Etienne bounce back in this matchup?
I mean, you can't feel good about it. We talked about it with Miles Sanders. This run defense is legit. I mean, I think if you have Etienne, you pretty much have to start him unless you have 2 really other good options, but definitely worried about Etienne this week.
Well, y'all might notice we don't have Etienne as a no-doubt must-start anymore. Don't feel great about his chances this week. Again, it's hard to just outright sit him depending on your options. Like, I'm not going to go like James Cook or Zonovan Knight over Etienne. But I think he's kind of very fringe this week. I would prefer to play a guy like Pollard, honestly. More upside, I think. So Etienne is a decent start, but I got my concerns. Chiefs taking on the Broncos this week. Obviously disappointing loss for the Chiefs, but Isaiah Pacheco keeps looking better and better. Caught a couple of passes too, scored a touchdown. How do you think he does in Mile High?
Yeah, not a great matchup, but he's getting the volume. He always has a chance to score. But again, the matchup is so brutal. I can't put him any more than, a start him if you need him kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with Denver, their defense has been really good all year. But I kind of wonder if we see more Pacheco because, Denver is the best against wide receivers. I think they're going to have to establish the run game. So I like Pacheco. Don't love, but I think he's a good start this week. And then there's Latavius Murray. Do you have any hope for him?
Not really. It's a good matchup, but man, what are you really hoping for from Latavius Murray? Just that he falls in the end zone, right? And with this Denver offense, that seems very unlikely. So I'm sitting Latavius Murray.
You know my take. I'm sticking with it. No Broncos. I mean, he's kind of a poor man's Jamal Williams. We're not crazy about Jamal Williams these days. I'm not going to play Latavius Murray. Panthers going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Deontay Foreman had a week off, and now he's back in the mix. How do you think he does against Seattle?
I mean, you got to feel pretty good about him. It's Seattle. Cam Akers just had a nice game against them. They're not a very good run defense. The only worry here is if the Seattle offense puts them in negative game script and he gets game scripted out. But the matchup, I think, is good enough that if you have Deontay Foreman, you should start him.
Yeah, I like Foreman this week. Given a guy who's a real physical runner and has been pretty much a workhorse, the week off, I think it'll be good for him. I think they're going to want to establish the run. They should be able to, so I think he's a really solid RB2 this week. Tampa Bay going to take on the really tough San Francisco run defense. We saw how they eliminated both running backs from Miami from the box score. So what does that mean for Rachaad White?
Man, I don't want to say you have to outright sit Rachaad White, but in this matchup, really have to be desperate to start Rachaad White. It's just they are so good against the run. Yeah, desperation flex at best.
Have to agree. Look, he could catch a few passes, but yeah, you can't feel good, especially assuming Fournette's still sharing time with him. You probably want to sit Rachaad White. And then I assume Leonard Fournette, not going to feel too much better about him.
No, again, desperation flex at best because he could fall in the end zone or something. But yeah, really, really risky start this week.
Got to agree. Only if you really need him. And then the Dolphins at the Chargers. Flex to the primetime game. Gotta love it. This is going to be an important game for both teams. So speaking of those running backs, Jeff Wilson did absolutely nothing. And they didn't even try to get him going. They'll give him, I think, one carry. Jeff Wilson is probably droppable at this point. Can you start him, though, because the Chargers are so bad against the run?
That's the thing. You look at the matchup and you think, man, I have to start Jeff Wilson, but how good are you going to feel having Jeff Wilson in your lineup? 2 weeks ago, he just had the best matchup and did nothing. There's no way I can start Jeff Wilson even in this matchup. I cannot do it.
No. And it's funny how quickly he went from such a hot commodity to a guy who could be waiver wire fodder. You can't do it. You're hoping for a touchdown, but there's other guys you could do that with, so I'll sit him. Probably feel the same about Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I'm sitting Raheem Mostert as well. I wish I could start one of these guys because of the matchup, but you just can't. You can't.
And it's interesting because now this week Mostert had the majority of the carries, but he still didn't do much. And who's to say that'll happen next week? Nah, I'm just staying away from this backfield, which is sad because the matchup is so good. Then the week closes with the Patriots at the Cardinals. Let's talk Ramondre. Some people let down by his output last week, but he still caught some passes. He still put up some yards. That floor pretty much keeps him, I think, as a must start.
Yeah, you can't, a guy has a bad game, a guy like Ramondre has a bad game, you can't just start, worrying and bench him. You still got to play Ramondre, must start.
Agree. And then, on the other hand, we got James Conner, also coming off a week of rest against a really tough Patriots run defense. How do you feel?
Yeah, can't feel good here. I'm not going to say you have to sit James Conner because we know his role in this offense. He gets so much volume, he can always score, but nothing more than a flex, start him if you need him kind of guy.
Yeah, he definitely takes a hit. You do like the fact he's pretty much the only guy getting touches in that backfield. Always has some scoring potential, but on that RB3 range really this week at best. Now you know how we feel about all those running backs for week 14. What about wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end? We've got you covered. Check out this playlist right here for all the fantasy advice that you need.